Okay, we're good. Hey, Dylan.
How are you?
I'm Doug. Nice to see you. Hey, folks. For those that are joining us live, we're here in Sheffield, Alabama today. Gorgeous afternoon. Great crowd outside the gallery here talking. It's another one of our listening sessions that we've been doing all over the state. We appreciate everybody tuning in and especially appreciate this crowd that's here today. Another really great crowd. And this is Dylan. What's your last name, Dylan?
Edwards.
Dylan Edwards. You from this area?
I'm from Muscle Shoals.
Muscle Shoals. Okay. For those that don't know, Muscle Shoals just right down the road. We got Florence, Sheffield, Muscle Shoals, Tuscumbia. This whole area, by the way, is almost like home since I used to work for Senator Howell Heflin from Alabama, right down the road in Tuscumbia. So, yes, y'all can clap for Howell Heflin. Absolutely. So, Dylan, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. You were randomly selected to do, so you're up first. Spotlight's on you. What's up?
Well, I came up with a question before I came here. There's been a lot of the news, especially around here, the Hadrian submarine subcomponent plant. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on in Huntsville with manufacturing. I guess the main question is continuing that growth in manufacturing in the state of Alabama while also making sure that the citizens of Alabama and the workers at these places get their fair share from that. What's your plan on trying to continue that growth, but also?
Great question. Great question. The real critical thing, and first of all, I think that's awesome about the submarine plant coming up here. I mean, I thought I did a double take when I thought a submarine plant.
Yeah.
Are they going to go up and down the Tennessee River over down and into the Gulf? But I think it's fabulous that the administration is bringing that plant here. As I understand it, that's going to be about 1,000 new jobs, and that's a big deal for this area. Part of what we are seeing in Alabama is some efforts that have been going on for a long time, particularly with federal government up here in the Tennessee Valley area. Huntsville seems to have just spread its wings throughout North Alabama, and that's a good thing. And you can thank a lot of folks for that. You can thank Senator Shelby, you can thank Senator Heflin, you can thank me, you can thank Senator Sessions. There's been so much federal dollars. And I really don't think that folks in the rest of Alabama appreciate as much of the federal government's impact in North Alabama. I think the bigger question that is, that was done as part of the bill that passed Congress. And I think the bigger question that we've got to ask is, number one, with the incentives that we give for all these out-of-state corporations coming in, and we give a lot.
Yes.
Some people say we give up the farm, but it's done a lot for Alabama. Mercedes-Benz came back, and y'all remember it was a Democrat that brought Mercedes-Benz. Jim Folsom brought Mercedes-Benz, and that came at a time when we were losing manufacturing, a lot of textile, and it transformed Alabama's economy. We've been able to maintain, I think, a pretty good level of economic growth because of these out-of-state companies. I am not convinced, though, that is filtering down to the local workers as much as it should. We need to make sure that we provide that when these folks are coming in here, that they make certain guarantees, not on the tax base and not to bring in a certain amount of jobs, but they bring in jobs that are going to be good paying, that are going to give people opportunities for advancement. That's the critical thing, too. If they're going to be doing apprenticeships, if they're going to be doing things like that will train folks to advance in that company or another company, I think that that's really important. The other thing that I want to do, though, is I want to make sure that as we're giving economic incentives for people to come to this state, we're also creating some incentives for people to stay in this state. We're creating some economic tax incentives for Alabama entrepreneurs. One of the best ways for folks to grow family wealth is through a family business.
My dad is a small business.
Awesome. What's his business?
Axis Sound and Lighting. He does lighting production and installs lights for mostly churches and schools.
That's awesome. Let me tell you, I'm really want to create a fund so that monies that are set aside for tax incentives, we can also set some criteria for local folks who want to start a business, want to keep that business in Alabama. You look around and this whole area is doing pretty well, but there's still a lot of buildings over there in Sheffield and Tuscumby and other places that are vacant. We need local folks going into those businesses, but they're going to need some help. So I think if we can do a lot of small business, I love the big submarine plant with 1,000 jobs, but I think it'd be great to have about a dozen smaller business, even if they've got 3 or 4 employees, because those can go and they can grow that generational wealth. I hope that kind of answers your question.
That's what. That was really, really the main question that I could come up with, and I guess as a resident of North Alabama, I get you kind of answered what my second question was going to be: is where your idea of North Alabama. It's the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing parts of the country, and just will it have a specific focal point in your eyes?
Look, North Alabama is a country of its own.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it is developed that way. And I'm just going to be honest about that. I have been so proud of the way they've done things up here. And I think one of the keys has been for people working together. Okay. I think that has happened in Mobile a little bit. It's not as happened as much around the state. But in my experience, when I was in the United States Senate, what I saw is the Chamber of Commerce working together with local mayors, local county commissioners, and working across political party lines for the betterment. That to me is the key. That doesn't always happen, but when you've got the kind of growth that you're seeing up here, it's got to happen. The other thing that's going to have to happen up here with the growth that we're seeing is we got to make sure we got roads and water and all the infrastructure necessary to do things. And I think that's going to be critical. But I want to make sure, as fond as I am up here with things up here, and as proud as I am of things going on up here, there's other parts in the state that could use some of this business. They could use some of the infrastructure. They could use some of the education expenses. They could use some of the incentives for small businesses. So, we're going to build a house with a crowded table, and that's what we want to do for everybody. But this place is rocking, and I don't want to see it slow down.
I guess you talked about I-65, the infrastructure like that, especially coming from Huntsville, 565, getting on 65, and because I've driven to Huntsville so many times in my life, that the amount of work that's been done on it, and just how it feels like this northwestern part of the state is kind of disconnected from because Huntsville's got 565, 65, I-20, 59, all the different interstates run through. We don't have anything like that here. Obviously, we have the river, which gives us a leg up on a lot of places. A really large river, but anyway, we have Norfolk Southern, the rail yard, but it kind of just feels like that we're a little disconnected from the rest of the state. And I have a lot of family that lives in Tennessee. It feels a little more connected to Tennessee a lot of the time than it does to the rest of the state of Alabama.
Yeah. Well, I would like to see the plan. I haven't seen any of the ALDOT plans and others for doing anything. I know that there has been talk about widening I-65. Maybe we should double or triple decker it to make sure it goes down. I don't know. But and driving up 157 is a wonderful drive, and it is connected, but yet doesn't seem to have the same kind of use. I really don't know. I think that needs to be studied a little bit. When they built a corridor going from Birmingham through Jasper up to Memphis, that was a big deal. Yeah. That was a big deal for all of those places up and down there. And so we need to, I don't have an answer for you on that. We need to study it, but it's those kind of comments really that we're really looking for here too. That's something that we can take back. That's the kind of local feedback that I'm looking for, so that I can get, and all of my staff that's sitting here taking notes, aren't you, Lillian? Yes, you are, about what we can take back to start looking at for the fall campaign and after inauguration. So thank you. I appreciate
that's all the questions I got.
All right, man.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dylan. I appreciate it very much. Come on, Dennis. And we've got an extra visitor here. That's okay.
I think some of the folks are having a hard time.
You're having a hard time hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
The microphones are going
to the lot. We'll try to speak up more. Which I never get to do very much at home, thanks to Louise. Hey, Dennis,
Doug,
how are you?
good.
All right, now we got to speak up. We got to use these outside voices. So
Good. I'm pretty good at that.
all right, good. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Talk to me.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for all the work you did as senator for this state.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Some of the issues that I have are more statewide issues than
Okay,
local.
that's all right.
Rural hospitals.
Yeah.
The expansion of Medicaid. A lot of people are having a hard time with their medical in the
Right.
state.
Yep. All right. Let me just say straight up. Okay. A lot of people don't realize. First of all, y'all know that as far back as 2017, I've been talking about expanding Medicaid. I've been trying to cajole the state every chance I get. They just don't cajole too well in Montgomery unless you've got a big special interest. And there's nobody down there that's a champion for Medicaid except some of our local legislators. Nobody. We've not had a statewide champion at all for Medicaid expansion, despite the fact that rural hospitals are closing. So here's the deal. And I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. And y'all listen up. Day one, I'm going to sign a bill to expand Medicaid, the eligibility for Medicaid. And on day one, and the governor can do that. The governor can sign expansion of eligibility. Now, it doesn't fund it, but we will work with the legislature to fund it, because I think rural hospitals are one of the keys, not just to a community. I think they're the keys to the economy of the state, because they produce not just healthcare related jobs, they produce jobs all around the healthcare facilities. So Medicaid is going to be I don't for the life of me understand why we can go down and allow our legislature to pass all the crazy crap that they do, and they will not do one thing to expand Medicaid or to provide health care and keep these rural hospitals. They depend on the federal government just to give them a dole out every now and then.
Yes, sir.
Health care is going to be a real priority, because even with going back to Dylan's question about the jobs, if you don't have a healthy workforce, it ain't going to matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. And so we've got to make sure that we do that. So Medicaid expansion is a big deal.
Great.
Thank you.
I think we all know about the issues with prison overcrowding in Alabama. Do you have some thoughts on that?
I do. Prison overcrowding is a huge issue. I assume a lot of the folks here, y'all see the Alabama Solution, the movie. Everybody is pretty much, and everybody was as horrified as I think I was, and people around the country. The prison system is not just a prison issue. It's really a criminal justice issue. It starts locally with cases that are brought, cases that are sentenced, people that need to be punished or sent to prison. But at some point, the system has also got to understand that those folks are going to get out of prison. And when they get out and how they get out and what they do when they get out is as much of the state and the citizens' responsibility as the criminal justice system itself. Rehabilitation, helping inside. There's been some really good programs that have started up, and I think we need to do more about the ability to come back into society, that reintegration back into society as people get. We have had a problem in the past with the parole system, because at one point, and if you look, I was looking at a chart the other day, and y'all might be able to find this. John Archibald with AL.com has been a big advocate of parole changes. He did a chart the other day about the number of paroles over the last 10 years and how they just dropped like a rock there for a bit. And that created such a problem within the prison system. They've started to tick back up in a positive way. We have a new head of the parole board, which I think is trying to right that ship. But that's a big deal. If the parole board is just keeping people in the system, then it is, we can't build enough prisons to overcome that. They've started to do that. There were a couple of bills that passed the legislature. I will give them credit when credit is due, and they did that. Which means I don't give them a lot of credit, okay? But they passed a couple of bills. For instance, parolees can now make a statement at their parole hearing by Zoom. Before this bill, they couldn't even appear, and it's crazy. So you have victims, you have others which should be there, should be able to heard. Individuals should be able to be heard as well. I'll tell you though, Dennis, the thing that I believe that helps our prison system more than anything is transparency. Being able to put that spotlight that the documentary put on our prison system probably did more to help prison reform and to make that with conditions that are humane than anything else. And so as governor, I want to establish some independent reviews. I want to be able to do some things to make sure that we can have a transparent prison system, but still maintain the security. Those are not inconsistent. Yeah. I've been a prosecutor. I've been in those prisons. You can have some transparency in what's going on, but still have security. The other thing I will tell you that I'm concerned about the fact that we got sold a bill of goods about the new prisons that are going up. We were told that $900 million of our COVID money that I think I helped pass, they were going to build 2 new prisons. Well, they've spent $1.2 or $3 billion now, and the first one is just now about to be completed. The second one hadn't been started. When I talk about transparency, I'm also talking about transparency on how your money's being spent and whether or not that money is being spent to good use and why it cost about 3 times more than they originally said. So I think there's a lot that can be done. I really do believe, based on 40, almost 50 years of experience in the criminal justice system, that transparency is the biggest issue that we face. And the more that we can shed a light on it for the legislature, for the public, I think the better off we're going to be. And I also believe the better off, when I say that, the citizens, because I think the better we will be when people come out and can be productive members of society. They've paid their dues. They can start paying taxes again. We can, at some point, for the nonviolent offenders, make sure they get their right to vote back. Good. And we can do the things to help move the state forward.
Great.
Okay?
Awesome. I know you're all for a state lottery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How do we go about that? How do we get it through the legislature?
Well, right now, the only state lottery we have is when everybody gets in their car and goes to Georgia or Mississippi.
Right.
Again, we haven't had a statewide champion for a lottery since Don Siegelman. And that went down for a lot of different reasons. But with Governor Jones, you're going to have a champion for statewide lottery. We're going to absolutely, and I think when you have that champion, it's easier to work with the legislature. Right now, one of the problems that we've had, and we're going to have it next year. I was on a panel yesterday with a couple of legislators, and everybody wants to do these comprehensive gambling packages. Now, I'm not necessarily opposed to some of that if it can be done. But the problem is the more things you put in a constitutional amendment involving gambling, the more opposition you can get from somebody. It is rare. Now, the big gambling package that they had a couple years ago lost by 1 vote in the Senate. Yeah. And it was the sponsor of the bill. Go figure that, guys. Okay.
But there's money coming in from out of state to prevent.
Well, there's a big. If y'all didn't see former Congressman Mo Brooks, he did a YouTube that I was watching this morning about DraftKings and some of the out of state, out of country gambling interests that are putting a whole lot of money in some Alabama PACs that are contributing to the Republican leadership down here. Now, again, I'm not opposed to some of that. I think it needs looked at. I know Governor Ivey had a commission that looked at gambling. But my focus is initially going to be on a lottery. If we can't get that, we need a standalone lottery bill and let everybody vote on it up or down.
Amen.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Now, I'm open to how we earmark the money. I will tell you, I don't want to do this. And I know even my friends in the legislature probably are going to disagree with me on this. I don't want to put lottery money in the general fund. Okay. I really don't want to put it in the general fund. I don't want the legislature to get their grubby little hands on it. I want to make sure that when the people of Alabama vote to get lottery money in, when they vote because they're taking their hard-earned dollars, playing the lottery, doing whatever, that money is going to go for where they want it to go to. That could be education. I will tell you my personal view is I'd love to see money going to education, not necessarily scholarships the way they did in Georgia or the way our initial lottery was. Candidly, what I'd like to see is a lot of that lottery money going to teacher raises. That's
Amen.
Exactly what I think we need to do. And we may have, could use some of it to expand Medicaid. I know there were some things about that the last time. I think right now what the lottery for this year is dead. This session, it's gone. Phil Ensler, who is running for lieutenant governor, by the way, introduced a bill at my request to a standalone lottery. It, of course, died. Nobody was going to give it a vote. In part, folks, because they know y'all want one, and they weren't going to put it on the ballot for November because they were afraid of how many people would come out and vote, and they're not going to vote for them.
Wow.
Okay, so It's dead this year, but next year when we get the new legislature and you get a new governor, a Governor Doug Jones, we're going to start right then to introduce that standalone bill. If others want to join in, fine. But
Awesome.
You're going to have a champion. And the other thing about it is when we start that campaign, I'm going to need everybody. I'm going to need everybody to call and write your legislators and say it is about dang time that we join the rest of the country in getting a lottery. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to get off my soapbox a little bit on the lottery, Dennis. You can get me rolling on that.
I think that's all.
That's
I
it?
had. I think that's all I got.
All right. Well, I didn't set that up, but thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So nice to meet
Thank you. Who we got, Lillian? Who's next? Okay. All right. Now I'm going to tell you now, if come on up, but we better have a lottery in which we get some of the women in this crowd up here too. Okay. Just saying. Okay. Awesome. Be ready.
Just bear with me.
You're good.
There we go.
How are you, sir?
No percentage in getting old.
How you doing? What's your name?
Steve Wiggins.
Steve Wiggins. Good to see you, Steve. What's up?
Well, I don't know.
Well, the floor is yours.
Well, I wanted to ask you some kind of hearts and minds questions.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yeah.
Talk about the North Star, your North Star, and things like that. How much of an influence do you think that Senator Heflin had on you?
Huge. I look. He was my first real mentor.
Yeah.
I met him when I was in college. His son Tom and I were friends in college. When they did the judicial article, they asked me to help coordinate that for students. I got out there, and I got to tell you, we did all that. I was on his campaign staff. I was in law school when he ran in 1978, and I decided not to do a clerkship between my second and third year at Cumberland, and instead work on his campaign. Of course, y'all know Heflin, or those of you that do, this will not surprise you. He said, Doug, that would be great. You did a good job for us. I'd love to have you. Here's the deal. You can work on the campaign, but you got to raise your own salary. Well, okay. And so I did. Part of the time I was on the phone with lawyers raising money. But let me tell you what I learned from Heflin. What I learned from Heflin is that being in public office is truly public service. He was, in my view, one of the original public servants in this state. Absolutely. Heflin had an ego as big as he was, but at the end of the day, he was for everybody in this community and across the state of Alabama. And I watched him and the way he worked with people and the way he could meet anybody, he could talk to anybody, he could make them laugh. He was always authentic on who he was. And that had a huge effect on me. It really did. He was just the original. And I got to tell, I think about him all the time. I do.
Well, he was a wonderful person and greatly accomplished, and people here in the Shoals. I mean, he was a native son.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, and his image, you know, shines quite brightly still here after all of this time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He was funny though. I got to tell y'all a funny story, and there's a lot of them about Heflin. But the funny thing about Heflin to all his staff, if y'all, you younger folks, really don't know who he is, go Google up his picture or some YouTube videos of him telling No Tie Hawkins jokes. But he was incredibly vain. He always wanted his picture on everything going on. He was not an attractive man, okay? That was one thing that you never said about Howell Heflin, but he was very vain. And so every time somebody would visit the office in Washington, he'd always say, where's the photographer? We got to have a picture. We got to have a picture.
You got it copied real well.
And so they'd get the Senate photographer up there, and he would always, and I'd watch him, he'd autograph all of these pictures to my good friend, Doug, you know, with best wishes for all your help in Alabama or whatever. So my last day on his staff, I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn this around, because I had been on judiciary with him and I had helped him chair a hearing. So I had all these great pictures of me and the judge up there on the dais. He's sitting there with his little thing. I've got my little name tag on the front. I was really proud. I was 26 years old. I thought I was in high cotton being there with Howell Heflin in a Senate judiciary here. They took this great picture. So when it came down, I got a copy of that picture made with the bottom line. And so that afternoon when we did the farewell, I said, Judge, I got a present for you. He said, what you got? The whole staff in his office. We were in the Dirksen building then. And I handed him a framed photograph of me and him. And I had autographed it to my good friend, Howell Heflin, with many thanks for your job in the United States Senate. Best wishes. And on that, at that time, he had a wall of autographed pictures that was even some of his Uncle Cotton Tom's, you know, like Woodrow Wilson. There was one of that President Kennedy had autographed to Senator Heflin when he was young. And I said, Judge, I don't know what you want to do. I said, that picture will go great right between Woodrow Wilson and John Kennedy. He said, I've got the perfect place for it, Doug. And he got up, and the staff was watching. He walked into his private bathroom and put it right over the commode. I said, well, thank you very much, Judge. I think it stayed there till they moved, but he was just an absolutely amazing figure. And by the way, as great as Howell Heflin was, so was Ms. Mike.
Oh, yes.
She was a real gem, and I dare say that he would have gotten a long way, but I think Elizabeth Ann Heflin's, you know, Carmichael Heflin was a real driving force. She was just a darling.
She was a wonderful person.
Absolutely.
Wonderful person.
All right. Thanks for helping me reminisce.
Well,
is that it?
Well, actually,
okay.
Time's almost up, but I do have one question.
Sure.
Though, one more. How do we get back there? How do we get back?
Oh, that's a hell of a question. That's a good question. Let me ask you, how do you think we get back there?
That's a hell of a question.
Fair enough.
I think that what we have to do is to be steadfast in our North Star of believing that everybody's life is important. Everybody's life, including those who maybe don't like
Here,
us. And that if we can express ourselves, and I'll be honest with you, I express myself sometimes extremely critically, and I'll bear that burden. But we've got to figure out a way of connecting with people, and say we may be different in terms of our political philosophy or our religious stance or whatever, but somehow or other we share the same goal, and that is to make this a better place after we're gone than the place we found it when we were first put here.
Beautiful. You're absolutely right. And I got to tell you, I can't say that I'm perfect on all that, but that's exactly what I strive for. And I think I've strived for that a long time, even as a private practicing lawyer.
Yeah.
But in 2017, when I ran, a lot of people heard me say more than one occasion, we have to have more dialogues instead of monologues. We've got more in common than divides us. And when I was really fortunate, that race in 2017 was such that so many people on both sides of the aisle breathed a sigh of relief. And even in Washington, I was able to work and do things. And that's still the most frustrating thing I see right now, both in Alabama as well as nationally. And that is, it's a game. It's us versus them,
Right.
Winners versus losers. Well, there's nothing about it that's a game about the health care that we were talking about a minute ago, about the jobs that we were talking about. We're not a football stadium, despite what some candidates say. We're not a football stadium. But I love the way you said it. And here's another way that I've been saying it. Many of you may know the four incredible, talented musical women called the Highwomen. And they did a song, and I quote this all the time. I did it in my kickoff. And it's called Crowded Table. I want a house with a crowded table where there's a place by the fire for everyone. Let's take on the world while we're young and able and gather back together when the day is done. The door is always open. Your picture's on my wall. We're all a little broken, but here we all belong. That's my vision for the state of Alabama. That's the vision for how we're going to govern a house with a crowded table where there's a place by the fire for everybody, regardless, where there's a place there for everyone, knowing that we're all a little broken. So thank you. Thanks for your comment and opening that up.
Well, thank you for everything that you've done for the state of Alabama. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, brother.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I would sing Crowded Table for y'all, but y'all don't want me to sing. Hey there.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Doug?
I am Carolyn Waterman. I live in Killen.
Okay.
I came to Alabama for 2 years, and that was 24 years ago. My husband dragged me here. But first, I appreciate you running to step up and step forward and meet the challenge. I just admire that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
But we have some problems that need to be
Oh,
solved.
oh yeah, 100%.
Now that I'm retired, I've been doing more volunteer work, and I see women in crisis every day. There's childcare issues, there's school issues, there's utility bills, the line at the help center gets longer and longer. We thought it was because of COVID. It hasn't gone down.
Mm-mm.
So, and I think one thing is this 9% sales tax, which is, but get that done. But what other things can you think about for the families? And
Well, it's a lot of things. It's not just one thing. There's a lot of things that I think that we can do. A lot of those women that have childcare issues would like to work, but they can't because the childcare costs so much.
Right.
They can't do that. There's transportation issues. Alabama has one of the lowest workforce participation rates in the country. We are only above, I think the last I saw was like West Virginia and Mississippi. Okay. And I mean, it's low, which when you hear all of these statistics about, oh, Alabama's got record low unemployment. Yeah. Okay. We do. And I appreciate the fact that we've got that. But how many employers around here are still looking for jobs, looking for employees? Okay. We've got record low unemployment, but yet we have increasing number of bankruptcies in this state. Why is that? It's in part because people can't get into the workforce. They've got obstacles to get in the workforce. I think transportation is a big one. Childcare is a big one. Elder care is a bigger one than people, I think, fully appreciate. And so we've got to start removing those obstacles to give people chances. Louise and I have talked a lot about trying to do more to get the child care issues taken care of, to get either grant money, to get free child care, to do something so that we can take that burden off, to give manufacturers, and there's some programs out there already, to give employers incentives, tax incentives, to have child care facilities. I think that's a big issue. Look, we need to do, and there's some things that we can do, like we could really use to kind of go up on the minimum wage in Alabama.
Oh, you think?
Okay? It hadn't been done by the feds in a long time.
right.
There's two ways you can do that. Both are going to be really hard because there is so many special interests in Montgomery that want to keep those wages low.
Sure.
But you can do it on a statewide basis and just create a minimum wage. Forget what the wage is with the feds. Create a minimum wage for the state. Or you can repeal a law that prohibits cities like Sheffield or counties like Colbert from raising the minimum wage in their jurisdictions. A few years ago, Birmingham tried to raise the minimum wage in Birmingham. And they were going to graduate it. It wasn't just some big jump. It was going to be a graduated increase. And a non-Birmingham legislator ran down to Montgomery and got a bill passed that prohibited any state or any municipality or county from raising the minimum wage. We can do those things. I think expanding Medicaid and getting people good health care for those. Right now, one of our problems is that coverage gap where people are working, they make a little bit too much money
Right.
for Medicaid.
Right.
They make not enough money to really get good health care. And so they end up taking their kids to the emergency room for routine health care. Those are some things. I want to get rid of the gas, not the gas tax. We can't completely do that. Although I do want to put a moratorium on it right now so people can get used to these high gas prices that Donald Trump and Tommy Tuberville have caused. But I also want to make sure we do away completely with the tax on groceries. It's little things like that that I think would,
Huge.
and I got to tell you guys, we talk about Republican, Democrat policies, whatever. Democrats have been trying to get rid of the grocery tax for 30, 40 years. John Knight from Montgomery, he tried to champion that for a long time. It was just recently where Republicans all of a sudden decided, well, we're going to do it a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And they've done it for like a couple of months, maybe coming up now, but we need to just get rid of that. I realize it's not a lot, but it's enough.
Right.
Because it all adds up.
Well,
So,
food prices have gone up, and so
Right.
lowering that doesn't help anybody.
right. The other thing that I think we got to think about, and this is going to require a lot of work and a lot of study, is the transportation issue. People are spending, and housing. transportation, people are spending so much. We love our cars. I love my cars, all of them. And, we've got to figure out ways to get some people for public transportation, especially with high gas prices. Housing costs have gone up considerably. We got to figure out how to not just have what is so-called affordable housing. There's affordable housing that people can't afford. And so we got to make sure that we get wages up and get the housing costs where people can actually afford it. I know you guys have heard this before, but some of the things about, well, we don't need to, there's no reason to raise the minimum wage and no reason to do X because it just doesn't cost as much to live in Alabama as it does somewhere else. Well, that used to be the case.
Right.
But now housing costs, fuel costs, electricity costs, they've all met the national average or getting close to it. But yet wages have not. So we've got to make sure we get the wages. Now, let's talk about electricity and electric bills. Everybody see what happened in this legislature with the Public Service Commission? Running down there, Democrats won 2 seats in Georgia on the PSC. So Republicans set their hair on fire and said, we got to do something about electric rates. Oh my God, electricity's too high in Alabama. PSC's broken. Well, let me tell you, the Republicans have had control of the PSC for 22 out of the last 26 years. If anybody broke it, they broke it. And it took 2 losses in Georgia to get them to change it. I think the bill that was passed was a bad bill. I don't like it. I told the Democrats who voted for it that I didn't like it. It doesn't do anything to fix it. The biggest problem is not in increasing the numbers to 7. I'd be okay with that. But when you create an energy secretary that controls the agenda for the PSC, that answers only to the governor, then that is a recipe for disaster. I can't imagine the crony that somebody like Tommy Tuberville will put in that office. Okay. So we got to play the hand we're dealt. If you want a rate case, for those of you that have Alabama Power and other utilities that are subject to the PSC, if you want a rate case, we got to get a new governor in there, and it can't be Tommy Tuberville.
One thing I just want to say quickly, I know, but
it's okay.
I got 2 seconds.
No, that's okay. You got as long as I say you can talk.
The women that I talk to that need these changes the most tend not to vote for whatever reason. Transportation, they think maybe their vote doesn't count. So I think it's all of our duty and challenge you to get these women and anybody who doesn't think their vote counts to convince them that it does, that it matters, and that if I can drive you to the polls that day or I'll get you there. So
I love that you're saying that because Alabama, folks, has one of the lowest voting participations of anybody in the country. We make it hard to vote in Alabama. That's number one. It's not easy to vote absentee. We've got all these hoops you got to jump through, and then you got to vote generally between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on one day. So we make it harder. We want to make it easier to vote, by the way. But getting people to understand that their vote matters, I think that's a real important piece of this. I think it's hard to do in this climate, especially when the legislature seems to be answering more to special interest and lobbyists down in Montgomery than they are to people. But I think if we show some things and we look around, I want to challenge people in this state to look outside of the South, which has generally been pretty dominated by one party for the last 20, 25 years, and see where we rank and see where we are. We continue to be at the bottom of most lists that are good and at the top of most lists that are bad. And that's the way it is throughout most of the southern states. You can dog New York, you can dog California, but if you look at their economies and if you look at how the people are doing, yeah, they've got their problems. They're not perfect. I guarantee you they're not perfect. but people are doing a lot better in places. And that's because they put leadership in the right places. And I think that has been Alabama's biggest thing. We've got a broken system. We've got a system, we've got a 1901 Constitution that was based on white supremacy. It was based on big old landowners that want to control everybody. Women didn't have a right to vote. African Americans didn't have a right to vote. It was time that we take power back to people. And one of the things that we've talked about doing and trying to get, and again, it'll take a lot of work to get this, but I'd love to see Alabama become one of the 26 states or 27 that have a ballot initiative where people can get signatures and gather signatures and put something on the ballot, whether it's legislation or whether a constitutional amendment. We need to have more stuff coming from you guys rather than these folks that go to the legislature. Okay.
They're the one party.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Reset that clock. We just she just mentioned one other thing that is a pet peeve. It's been mine for a long time, is that we need to get rid of straight ticket voting, that one box, get rid of it. When I said earlier, I want to earn everybody's vote, I want everybody that's on the ballot.
Right.
I want everybody that's on the ballot to earn a vote, not just be a part of a clique or a party, but earn it. And that's Democrats too. Every Democrat, no matter where they are on the ballot, needs to earn the votes that they get. Let's work on that. Let's make sure we do that. Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Isabella.
Okay, and we're going, for the sake of time, we're going to go to 5 minutes per person.
We're going to go when Doug says we're going to go. Aren't we? Okay. Thank you. Okay, that's fine. All right. Hey, Isabella.
Hey.
I'm Doug. Nice to see
Nice
you.
to meet y'all. Can y'all hear?
Just speak up. It's hard.
I was in the back, so I know it's a little hard to
Yeah.
hear. So I'm 31. I live in Florence, and a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about has already been discussed, which is honestly kind of nice knowing that everybody has the same issues and cares about the same things. But one thing that I've noticed is that in all of the groups I'm in, people are just feeling like a sense of hopelessness.
Right.
Almost to the point of what's the point? Why bother? And I think that ties into the lack of people voting, young people not going to vote. So what do you think?
Let me tell you what I think it ties into as much as that. And that's the lack of choices. Look what's happened in Alabama over the last 20, 25 years. We just haven't had choices. People have thought that their vote doesn't matter because they didn't have a choice in a whole lot of elections. I think that coupled with the fact that it's difficult to vote, they don't see anything changing. Alabama, we hear all this talk about all these businesses coming in, but yet it really doesn't affect folks because there's a lot of other things in Alabama that doesn't change because we're not given those choices. We're going to have those. I don't know if you guys know this, but the first 2 months of this campaign, to show you how important that is to me, that it's not just my campaign. This is much bigger than Doug Jones's campaign. I spent the first 2 months of my campaign recruiting people. For the first time, folks, I literally, first 2 months of the campaign on the phone every day. We did one event. I didn't do fundraising calls. We did some emails, but I was on the phone recruiting up until 5 o'clock when qualifying closed. This is the first time since 2006 that there's going to be a Democrat in every spot on the ballot in our 7 constitutional offices. That's a big deal, folks. Out of those 6 that I recruited, one I'd been talking to for over a year. Wayne Rogers is running for Secretary of State. He's from Thomasville. He had announced beforehand. The other 5, it took phone calls from me. It took a little arm twisting from me. It took the opportunity to say we're going to give people that hope. And I will tell you, you go by Bella?
Yep.
Okay, I figured that from that pretty
Yep,
necklace
yep.
you got.
Thank you.
The 2017 election, everywhere after that election that Louise and I went, that is exactly what we heard. That election gave people hope. It was not Doug Jones that gave them hope. It was the fact that the people of Alabama stepped up and did something that no one thought they would do. And that was elect somebody to the United States Senate, a Democrat for the first time in 25 years, somebody who brought that crowded table, just didn't use the terms. And everywhere we went and all across the country, after 1 year of Donald Trump's administration, Alabama brought that hope. It was inside. And I'm going to tell you, I can relate, because one of the reasons that I got into this race, and Louise and I talked about this a lot over the course of the summer, because I got in this late because I was trying to see how things were going to go. I was trying to see if anybody was going to build the choices. And there was nobody. There was nobody in the lieutenant governor's race, the attorney general's race, the treasurer's race. This is the first time our state treasurer will have a Democratic opponent, and he's won 3 times. And this is going to be the first time. So I didn't see that. I talked to Ron Sparks, who's now running for ag commissioner again, his old seat. And the thing that we heard now, after the first few months of the Trump administration, was not that you gave us hope. It was, are we going to be okay? And that really had a dramatic effect on the two of us. It really hit hard when people were coming up to us and saying, are we going to be okay? They saw the chaos. They saw the rule of law just being thrown out the window. They saw a Justice Department actually being weaponized. They saw so many things, and they saw members of our congressional delegation in the House and the Senate being right in lockstep, and they worried that they weren't going to be okay. So I get that. Yeah. But here's the thing. The hope lies in that election. This year, we have a unique opportunity. We have such an opportunity to change the course of this state. It is not going to completely reverse course on so many things, but we have an opportunity to make sure that we change directions, that your voices are going to be heard, that your voices, age 31 and younger, are going to be heard. But you got to exercise that voice. You got to get out there. John Lewis used to say that voting was the single most powerful method of change, nonviolent method of change. And he's absolutely right. We've seen these changes before because of votes. And now we can see it again. Look what happened. Look what votes did in Hungary just this past week. Look what happened in Hungary. If they can do it in Hungary and get somebody like an autocrat like Viktor Orban out of office that can destroy the rule of law, destroy the press, destroy just about every piece of democracy. And if they can, 80% of Hungarians turned out to vote. If we get 80% of Alabamans turn out to vote, we're going to kick their rear ends, buddy. I'm telling you.
I hope so.
So that's the hope. That's the hope. Exercise it with your vote.
Gotcha.
Okay?
All right. Train. The Train is a paid actor.
There's got to be a song somewhere in this, Tracy. Okay?
Yeah. Just wait for it to pass, I guess.
Right. Yep.
So something that's been on my mind has been the maternity care.
Yeah.
I know someone else brought up hospitals in general, but I recently learned that there's only hospitals that have obstetric care in 15 counties.
I think it's
14 now.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great news. So, as somebody who's like wants a family, and everyone's like, people aren't having children, it's not because people don't want to have children, but it's a fear of what kind of care we're going to receive. Right. To the point of I know people personally who have miscarried in Alabama who are afraid to go get help for that because they don't know what's going to happen to them when
they don't know if they'll be arrested.
Yeah,
I get it. Look, when I was in the Senate Maternal care was a big issue. I did a number of things. Most of those bills never made it. But maternal mortality in Alabama is one of the highest. It's especially high of Black mothers and Hispanic mothers. Infant mortality is the same. I think to some extent it goes back to Medicaid expansion in the rural hospitals. Folks, I don't think people in Alabama fully appreciate the impact that Medicaid expansion would have on the entire state. It would really bring in billions of dollars to this state. It would prop up. We're a poor state. We're an unhealthy state. And by expanding health care in rural areas and in some urban areas that need it, it helps everybody. And I think, the state did expand Medicaid for mothers for at least a period of time. It was a bill I championed in the Senate, and the state did that, which is great. But it's got to go beyond that, because when those mothers and those babies get past a certain point and their health care goes off, then they're in trouble. So I think the real key, one, is Medicaid expansion and giving incentives for rural hospitals to stay open. And I say rural hospitals. It's not all rural hospitals. Yeah. Jackson Hospital in Montgomery is about to close. I mean, it's teetering right now because of the way that the insurance companies do reimbursements. One of the things we did in the Senate, too, for the first time ever, we got the reimbursement for doctors at a higher level. Alabama is really low in their reimbursements from Medicare and Medicaid. We've got to work with the congressional delegation to get that up again. But I do know this. I do know the state, most recently, Governor Ivey has looked at the maternal mortality rates and has at least started some programs. We got to make those programs more robust.
Yeah, it's scary to not know if you're going to leave the hospital, if your baby's going to leave the hospital, if you're going to be able to get prenatal care.
Right.
What I've heard from a lot of people is that they're telling people to come in later for their prenatal care because they can't keep up with the amount of patients now.
Yep.
So you may not find out until you're 12 or 20 weeks along that you have something wrong, which of course that limits your options. People are traveling out of state.
Yep.
And it's just, as someone who is, pro-choice, you can feel about it how you want, but there's a lot of cases where people they wanted the baby and they can't, for whatever reason, get care after the fact if something goes wrong. So I'd just like to see a world where people aren't scared to get maternity care.
Well, I agree. And I really do believe the access. Look, I'm going to tell you, and I really believe this, Bella. If we can elect a statewide champion for Medicaid expansion, for health care, I think we can make a lot of changes in this state. Right now, it has been so politicized that's why we can't get any of this. It is an R versus D issue, and we got to make it an A issue. We got to make it about Alabama and not just about a political issue. And I think we can do that, but it goes back to the votes. And it's not just the votes for governor, but the votes that they vote for their state representative and their state senator. Those people have got to know the priorities in these districts. So I appreciate it.
Yep.
And I think we got it. So
Sure.
Thank you.
Nice to see
Thanks
you.
very much. Is that a wrap? One more. Okay. We're going to do one more. All right. Great comments. Great questions. This is awesome. How are you, sir?
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
I'm
man.
Roderick Metcalf.
Roderick, good to see you.
Yes, I've lived in this born and reared in Sheffield, live in Tuscumia now.
Awesome.
And councilman in Tuscumia, so I'm gonna give you some political advice right quick.
Okay, tell me. I'm not getting any of that these days.
If you want to win the Tri-Cities, just promise to put a train overpass in.
All right.
You don't have to actually do it, just promise.
As that one was going by, I was making a note to self, train overpass. And if we could get a silencer on it, that might be, we can put them on guns. We ought to be able to put them on trains,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
I appreciate that, though. Seriously, I will tell you this. That's a really good, important thing to know, seriously. It's exactly why I like coming to these things. The other thing I want to tell you as a councilman, one of the things, I'm not talking about taking power away from Montgomery just by ballot initiatives. I want to give mayors and city councilors more authority. We don't have enough home rule in this state. It's all concentrated. They talk about it all the time. They relish in it down there. The rubber meets the road with the mayors and the city council.
Absolutely.
And I want to try to figure out ways, working with the League of Municipalities and the County Commissioners Association, to try to get some things in the legislature that would give more authority, so you guys don't have to run down to Montgomery every time you need to do something, and we can stop these stupid local bills. Did y'all know on that? I'm going to get on the soapbox in a minute. This time with the legislature, we've been working really close with the legislature, and I watched them the first week, and I wanted to look and say, okay, what are they passing? What are they passing? And I started looking, and it was all bills that were passing like 6-2 or 4-3 or 8-0. And it was because they were all local legislation that had to be passed for lack of a home rule, and all the other legislators, as a matter of courtesy, would not vote. So they would give up their responsibility because we've got an antiquated system that wouldn't let y'all do it in the dang first place. So I'm going to work. I just want to let you know that's one of my goals.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And that leads me into my first question. One thing about being at the end, most of my questions have already been asked.
Good.
So, but small towns struggle with infrastructure.
Yep.
And the paperwork for that, and the fact that it's tied to large population areas, makes it difficult for us with failing sewers, those bad roads you drove in on.
Yep.
What can you do to curtail something for the small towns? Because that's the only way to draw in businesses and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a little bit more of the home rule. I think we need to let the mayors, the city council do that. You got to set some state guidelines. I get that. But I think so much of that is not just local folks. I think a lot of it is state, fair amount of it's feds. Okay. So I want to see the government reimagined that is more responsive to local needs. And that's always one. I've heard that for a long time now. Paperwork creates a more expense. We need to make sure that the goals of the rules and the regulations can be met without the burden of all the paperwork. So I think it's tied to a little bit more of home rule. I think we need to do that. And I want to see, I told a group the other day when I was speaking to a group of realtors the other day, and they had their priorities. I said, what you guys need to do, and your county commissioners and your cities and your mayors need to do this too. Everybody has these days where we go in and everybody goes down there one day. Y'all need to start rotating in teams, man. I'm telling you, have people down there all the time and just outgun them. Just make sure that because every time you come in there, somebody's going to be coming in behind you. Now, the one thing that I think we need to be careful of, and this goes back to, I think, mayor, city councilman, what we got to be careful of is doing things where folks can come in under cover of darkness without any rules and regulations. And all of a sudden, you got a data center going up in the middle of town that you don't need, you don't want, and you don't know what the effects are going to be. Down in Stockton, Alabama right now, they came in, there's a 4,000 acre solar farm. Now, I'm all for alternative fuels and solar energy and those kind of things, but they did it without telling anybody. And it's right next to the river. They don't know what environmental impact it's going to be. So you got to have some watchdogs. And I think the more you can do that, the better. But I think there's got to be ways. It is just, the paperwork has just snowballed. It's just gotten out of control.
Yes, it has. Thank you. My next question is Hadrian. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
And that's 1,000 jobs. Everybody's excited about it. Those jobs in manufacturing, okay, but some of the better paying jobs will be the construction side of it.
Yep.
And oftentimes, union labor is on an unfair playing field with those. What can you do as the governor to make sure that unions who ask for prevailing wages Blue Cross Blue Shield, health care, and retirement, so people can live a quality of life that they can be proud of and comfortable. They won't get rich, but they'll be comfortable.
Yeah.
What can put us on a level playing field and our contractors that bid those jobs?
You know, I think that also goes back to a little bit more home rule and not, and look, the more we can get out of the hands of Montgomery, the better. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And so those construction jobs, we also need to get more people into construction. That's part of the problem too. We need to get more people in and trained in construction. And I think we need to boost the local jobs, whether they're union jobs or whether they're other things in where people have a minimum. I think that the cities and the counties, I think there's a lot that they can do by contract with a lot of that. And I think we also have to encourage businesses when they come in to use those local folks. Sometimes that's going to be a union. Sometimes it's not. You know, unions up here have traditionally been stronger than in other places in the state. And so we want to make sure that local workers also, and they're getting their fair share, because it's, to me, you know, my dad, my granddad, everybody was a union guy growing up, and that built a middle class. And I think our unions still lead the way in helping with health care and benefits and those kind of things. But they don't have the, you know, employers don't pay the pensions like they used to. Every guy's got these 401ks. But workforce development and training, I think, in these construction jobs are going to be important too. I think that that's a huge deal.
And most unions are set up for training.
Absolutely.
And
apprenticeships,
yes.
Apprentices. You know, I went to the IBEW apprenticeship graduation the other day. Those guys were in there for 4 years to get certified. It was really great. It was just like a college graduation for those guys. They were mamas and daddies there. It was wonderful.
And when they came out, they had no student loan.
None. Zilch. None. Yeah. So, but thank you that. And it's something we're going to, I think part of workforce development and also the trying to get the labor participation rates all going to go into exactly what you said. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Roger. Good to see you, man. That's it. I'm going to wrap the live. Okay. Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We're going to use some of this on social media. Let me once again thank everybody that came out here today. We'll stay around for a little bit and talk and meet, have some more dialogue and questions. We're going to shut the cameras off right now so y'all can use profanity if you want to. It's okay. But I really do appreciate this. Doing these things is so important for our campaign. And I really mean this. We learned so much today. I mean, I'm not kidding about this. I don't have all the answers. I don't not have all the answers. I go around this state and I see so many things and so many people, and I'm hearing from so many folks, and we're going to take it all. And I guarantee you, we're going to take these answers back. We're going to take these comments back. We're going to incorporate everything that we can. Everything that was said about here is going to be incorporated one way or another. And so that come next January, when we get a new legislature and a new governor sworn in, and that's going to be me, okay? We'll be able to come back and have these same things. One thing that people say all the time, what you going to do? I'm going to be a governor that comes back up here and does these again as the governor of the state of Alabama. So thank you all so much. Thank you all for joining us. Okay. Yes.
Alan,